It's Movie Time. It's produced by John DeSanto. Listen to shows and read reviews online at wcbe.org.
I'm John DeSanto.
And I'm KG Klein.
And this is It's Movie Time. And what a weekend.
Oh my gosh, this was the Barbieheimer weekend. No, it's a great thing. It was a great thing to walk into theaters this weekend and see them packed, see shows sold out in advance. It reminded me of before the pandemic. This is 2019.
Well, I'm going to flat out say, and I don't ordinarily do this, okay? Oppenheimer is my favorite movie of the year.
Is it really?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Well, you're ahead of me. It was not my favorite movie of the year, but it has certainly lived up to expectations.
And I think one of the great war films of all time.
One of the great World War II films.
Yes.
And
yeah.
the most expensive biopic in history, and also I think one of the best biopics.
Yes, all right. And what makes it good?
Visually, this film is absolutely stunning. I mean, when you look at this director's history, he makes very, very impressive visual films. Interstellar. Christopher Nolan is known for complicated films that don't always follow a proper timeline. They're nonlinear usually. That's the case here. But visually just amazing. And I don't think I've ever seen a biopic that was as visually amazing as this one.
Now, there's a chance that in Oppenheimer, which is the story of the father of the atomic bomb, and throws me back, you're way too young, but it throws me back to a time when I was hiding under desks. Mm-hmm. And a rather silly notion when you have atomic bombs. I don't know what the heck, but that was the nuns.
Yes.
That was as far as they could think.
Yep, drop and cover.
Right.
And just the idea that somehow you could protect yourself from a 20 megaton nuclear bomb by hiding on your desks, but it made you feel like you were doing something.
It did.
It's like trying to run away from a grizzly bear.
But I'll tell you, Ken, it was truly scary. The fact that this was imminent, that nuclear war was a possibility. Now remember, it's not now where we feel perhaps we've got a little bit of a handle on it worldwide. Back then, it was all new territory.
Well, and this is the whole evolution of the dawn of the nuclear age.
Yeah.
You know, the movie tells the story of the Manhattan Project, Trinity, the test firing of the very first atomic bomb, and that whole project was overseen by J. Robert Oppenheimer, who was a leading theoretical physicist at the time. A very brilliant but very troubled person, a very flawed person.
He was. He left Cambridge to pursue quantum physics, I think.
He went for.
I mean, I would do it for a woman, but I would have quantum physics.
No,
but he does it for both.
He does it for both. He does it. He leaves the United States to go first to England because that's where they were studying quantum physics, not in the United States. And then he leaves England for Germany in the 1930s, and you get. The film is again told non-linearly, so you get the timeline is all over the place.
You know, that's an interesting point. I wasn't really bothered by that.
Well, that's Christopher Nolan.
Yeah.
Nolan knows how to do this. Tenet was his last movie. That came out, one of the first films to come out after COVID. And the whole basis of the film is that time is not going in one direction in that movie. And he managed to pull that off very effectively, and he likes to make his films intentionally complicated.
Oh, I love it. And one of the helps here is that he goes from really beautiful black and white to color. He mixes he kind of has the two there.
Yes.
And I think he does a good job with that.
Well, there's two different things going on in this film. There's two stories that are unfolding. One is the story of the Manhattan Project and the creation of the atomic bomb.
Right.
And the other is the story of Oppenheimer's life afterwards and the attacks upon Oppenheimer's character by a person who perceived he had been wronged by Oppenheimer, who was trying to get a Senate position.
And I will tell you, probably his best role.
Oh, Robert Downey Jr.
Holy
it's certainly much better than when he was playing Iron Man.
Oh, jeez, Ken. The guy is brilliant.
He has always been an absolutely brilliant actor in anything that he has done.
He just loses
Going
himself.
back to Chaplin, I mean, he totally involves himself in the roles. He is so much ahead of, when you saw him in the superhero films, he was such a head above the other actors.
You're right.
Yeah, and that's why after Iron Man, this Marvel series has really taken a dip.
He does play Louis Strauss.
Louis Strauss,
who was the chairman of he's the first one,
Yeah.
chairman of the
Atomic Energy Commission, yes,
Yeah.
and he was trying to get a Senate appointment. But during World War II, he had been involved with Oppenheimer in a series
Yes.
of plans to ship uranium isotopes to Norway, which Strauss opposed and Oppenheimer supported. And Oppenheimer's power in politics, through having been the chief of the Manhattan Project, allowed him to win that battle. But Strauss is one of those fellows who just never forgives.
You always did, and he, he suffered for his association, whether
He
he
did.
wanted to dissociate himself or not, didn't make any difference. He
Well,
still did.
I think the whole purpose of the Strauss storyline is that every biopic has to have a conflict.
Yes.
That's the backbone of the story, is there has to be some conflict, whether you're talking about the Queen biopic or any of the great biopics. There's always something that's a conflict that has to be resolved.
Yeah, and in this case, it was necessary, I think, to flesh out in the Strauss segments, to flesh out the political conflict that Oppenheimer was going through. I mean, enough that he's producing this atomic bomb, but he also has to deal with politics. And at one point, a character says, "You become a politician."
Well, and this is one of the reasons why he was appointed as the director of the Manhattan Project, is because they knew he had a lot of baggage. Oppenheimer had been associated with the American Communist Party all throughout the 1930s, and
He never joined, did he?
I don't believe he ever joined.
But
His
his
wife
liberal,
Kitty did.
his liberal side.
Well, and
was catching him.
the American Communist Party in the 1930s was not necessarily pro-Soviet. They were pro-socialism in America. And they were also very they were very anti-fascist in the Spanish Civil War. So it was a political ideology that was not necessarily tied to the Soviets. But because Oppenheimer was involved with this, he could easily be blackmailed and controlled, whereas other of these scientists on the project that didn't have this baggage would not back down.
Yeah, as a side note on this, I think this film, Nolan does as good a job as anyone in showing the absurdity of the Joe McCarthy, his pursuit.
Oh yeah, it doesn't dwell on it. It's not a film about McCarthyism.
Right, exactly, yes.
But it does show, and it's a rare moment where the people who are being oppressed by McCarthyism have a chance to fight back. Because, of course, the scientists rallied around Oppenheimer. Now, the film says that they rallied around Oppenheimer because they supported his work and they loved him as a man. But in reality, they rallied around Oppenheimer because they were afraid they were next.
Yes,
And they
right.
needed to form a strong, united front of scientists who were against the government trying to come down on them.
Now, Cillian Murphy has to play in one case, a kind of aloof scientist, on the other, a womanizer.
Oh yeah, Oppenheimer was all of those and above and much more.
And two very fine women.
He was he was a very shy, introverted person, but he also had a very ferocious appetite. Florence Pugh.
Oh,
Florence
I
Pugh.
was just going to say, there are two of them, and Emily Blunt is terrific.
Emily Blunt plays Kitty Oppenheimer, his wife,
She
and
did
Florence
a
Pugh
tough
plays
job.
Jean Titlock. Jean is probably the most interesting of the character in the movie for me. I've known about her before this movie came out. She's a fascinating person. And Florence nails her. If anything, Florence is not crazy enough as the character. And one of the few flaws I find with this movie is I do not forgive Nolan for not raising the issue that continues to this day, that she may have been murdered by government agents who were afraid that she was acting as an informant for the Soviets through her relationship with Oppenheimer.
I will tell you, and I've got to warn people because I have a conservative friend who's concerned about the nude scene with her.
And there is several nude
Here
scenes
to tell
with
you,
her.
she's a beautiful woman.
Oh, she's
And they carry this off.
Mm-hmm.
They have her sitting in a chair and she's naked.
Yes.
And I swear to you that it is not disconcerting at all.
Oh, no.
It's so, well, she's such a
She's
terrific actress.
she's a powerful personality on screen.
Yeah.
She's capable of very, very powerful work.
All right, K.G. Klein. Let's advise our audience, because they're going to have to go to our Back Talk podcast if they want to hear more about our
It is
blather.
impossible to talk about a 3-hour classic like this movie
All
in
right.
5 minutes.
All
It's
right.
just impossible.
Ken, what do you advise our audience?
What I would advise is if you're looking for a movie that's got lots of nuclear explosions and lots of talk about building bombs and World War II, do not go to this movie for that reason. It is not. This is a talking movie.
Yes.
This is a movie about men talking, about science, about the future of humanity. This is a film that will be nominated for Best Picture but will not win.
Oh, listen to you. And you can also get a chance to see Matt Damon as a general.
And a wonderful performance, and one of the few humorous performances in the film.